The morning sun rose slowly over the busy city of Lagos, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. The city was already awake, but this morning was not like any other. Everywhere, people whispered the same words: Tunde Bako is dead. Cars slowed down near his grand white mansion at the edge of Ikoyi. Security guards stood at the gate, trying to control the growing crowd. Reporters and curious neighbors gathered, hoping to see something, anything. Tunde was one of the richest men in Lagos, known for his wide smile, big businesses, and expensive lifestyle. He had everything: cars, land, and power. But now he was gone. Inside the mansion, the air was heavy with silence. The sound of quiet footsteps echoed through the hallways. Every room smelled of flowers, candles, and sorrow. In the middle of the large sitting room stood a silver coffin covered with white roses. Beside it sat Adaora Bako, Tunde's wife. Her eyes were calm, her face still, but something deep inside her looked far away, as if she was listening to something no one else could hear. She had not spoken much since her husband's death 2 days ago. The doctors had said it was a heart attack. Some said stress. Others whispered that wealth had its price. But Adaora had simply sat beside the body, watching in silence. The elders from both families arrived early that morning to plan the burial. Tradition said a man of Tunde's status must be buried quickly and with great honor. The family priest had already prepared the prayers. The caterers had arrived, and the drummers waited outside. It was to be a grand farewell, one that would fill the whole neighborhood with sound and tears. But Adaora remained seated. Her sister-in-law, Chika, walked up to her. "Adaora, my dear, everyone is waiting. We must take him to the church now." Adaora did not move. Her hands rested on her lap, fingers slightly trembling. "Did you hear me?" Chika said again, her voice lower this time. "People are talking already. You don't want them to say bad things." Finally, Adaora lifted her head. Her eyes met Chika's, calm and deep. "There will be no burial today," she said softly. The room fell silent. The elders looked at one another in confusion. One of them, Chief Balagan, cleared his throat. "Daughter," he said gently, "perhaps you are tired. We understand. But this man must be buried as our tradition demands. The people are waiting." Adaora shook her head. "No, Chief. He cannot be buried yet." A murmur ran through the room. The priest frowned. "Madam, please," he said, "do not let grief make you speak strange words. The body must go to rest." But Adaora stood slowly, her movements calm but firm. "He cannot rest," she said. "Not yet." The elders exchanged uneasy glances. Tunde's younger brother, Malik, stepped forward. "What do you mean? What are you saying?" he demanded. Adaora turned to face him. "I am saying that my husband is not ready for the earth." Her words sent a chill through the air. The workers outside stopped moving, their eyes wide. Malik's voice rose. "You are losing your mind. What kind of talk is this? The man is gone. His body lies before us." Adaora said nothing. Her gaze went back to the coffin, and she placed her hand gently on it. "Let no one touch him," she said quietly. She turned and walked away, leaving everyone frozen. Outside, the crowd began to whisper. Rumors spread fast. Some said the widow had gone mad from grief. Others said she was afraid to let him go because of love. But a few older women shook their heads and murmured that there must be something deeper, something that only she knew. The day passed slowly. The funeral workers waited outside all afternoon, unsure of what to do. The drummers packed up their instruments in silence. Even the birds seemed to stop singing around the mansion. When night fell, Adaora sat alone in the darkened room. Only the small flame of a candle lit her face. She looked at the coffin and whispered, "You always said you would never leave me with your secrets, Tunde. But now I see that you already did." Her voice broke slightly, but she did not cry. She had shed all her tears in the first night. Now her mind was clear, and her heart was filled with questions. A knock came at the door. It was her housekeeper, Mama F., holding a tray of food. "Madam, please eat something," the old woman said softly. "You haven't eaten since yesterday." Adaora shook her head. "Not now." Mama F sighed. People outside are worried. They say you are refusing the burial. Is it true? Adaora nodded slowly. It is true. Why, madam? Adaora looked at her for a long time. Because he is not ready, she said again. And neither am I. The old woman did not understand, but she said nothing more. She placed the tray down and left quietly. As the house fell silent again, Adaora walked to the window. The lights of Lagos sparkled in the distance. She thought of the years she had spent beside Tund, the business meetings, the travel, the wealth, the parties. Everyone had envied their life. But Adaora knew something the world did not. Behind Tund's smile were shadows he never spoke of. Some nights she had found him awake, staring at papers, whispering, "One day, I'll make it right." She had never asked what he meant. Now, she wished she had. She turned back to the coffin. "You left me questions instead of answers," she whispered. "But I will find them." In the silence of that night, thunder rolled far away. A faint wind moved through the room, brushing the curtain aside. The candle flickered. For a moment, Adaora felt something, a strange peace, as if the air itself agreed with her decision. By morning, people returned again to the gates, waiting to see if the burial would happen. But Adaora gave no word. She greeted no one, spoke to no one. The elders tried to send messengers, but she refused to open the door. Days turned into nights, and the whispers grew louder. Some said she was haunted. Others said her husband's spirit spoke to her. But Adaora did not care. She felt something unfinished, a truth still hiding behind the silence of death. Every night, she sat beside the coffin, her candle glowing softly in the dark. She would whisper into the quiet, "I will not bury you in lies. Not until I know everything." And though no one else could hear it, deep within the silence, the house seemed to breathe back, like a place holding its own secret. The days after Tund Bako's death stretched long and heavy over the mansion. What was once a house full of laughter, guests, and the smell of rich food now felt like a tomb. The air inside was still, and even the servants moved quietly, afraid to make noise. Outside, the sun rose and set, but inside, time seemed to stop. Adaora had locked the big iron gates. No one went in, and no one came out. The beautiful garden, where Tund once hosted his business friends, now stood empty. The birds still sang, but their songs sounded sad, echoing through the quiet compound. The family began to grow restless. Tund's brothers, Malik and Jide, came every morning, demanding to see Adaora. "We cannot keep a dead man in the house for this long," Malik shouted one afternoon, pounding on the front gate. "You are bringing shame to our name." But Adaora did not answer. From behind the tall window, she stood watching silently, her hands folded. When they realized she would not come out, they left in anger, but not before promising to return with the elders. By evening, the whole neighborhood was talking. Some said Adaora had lost her mind. Others whispered that she was afraid her husband's spirit would haunt her if she buried him. But the most popular rumor was that she was hiding something. Maybe gold, money, or secret property her husband had kept from his family. Why else would she guard the coffin day and night? People asked each other in the market. Maybe she is protecting his riches. In truth, Adaora had not slept for 3 nights. She sat in the living room beside the coffin, a small lantern glowing by her side. Her face looked pale, her eyes dark from exhaustion, but her mind was wide awake. Sometimes, she thought she heard footsteps from Tund's study upstairs. Other times, she could almost hear his voice calling her name softly, like he used to when he wanted to explain something important. But she never moved. She only whispered, "I am here, Tund. I will not let them take you yet." Her housekeeper, Mama F., worried about her deeply. She knocked gently one morning. "Madam, please," she said, standing by the door. "You need to rest. This is not good for your health." Adaora looked up, her voice quiet. "Mama F., do you believe a soul can be restless?" The old woman frowned. "Restless? You mean like a ghost?" "No," Adaora said. "I mean a person whose heart was not at peace before death." Mama F. hesitated. "I don't know, madam. Only God knows such things. But your husband is gone. You must let him rest." Adaora shook her head. "Not yet. Something is not right. The old woman sighed, realizing nothing could change her mind. Later that day, the elders arrived with Tun's brothers. They knocked loudly, calling out her name. Adaora! You cannot lock yourself away like this. Chief Balagan shouted. You are breaking custom. This is not how we honor our dead. Still, Adaora stayed silent. When the shouting grew too loud, she finally opened the door and stepped out. Her face was calm, her wrapper neatly tied, and her voice steady. I will not stop you from speaking, she said. But I will not let you bury him. Jide threw his hands in the air. This woman has gone mad. The whole city is talking about us. Adaora looked at him without fear. Let them talk. The truth will silence them soon. Malik stepped closer. What truth? You speak in riddles. What are you hiding? Adaora turned and pointed toward the coffin inside. The truth lies with him. The men stared at her as if she were cursed. Chief Balagan finally said, Adaora, the dead must go to the earth. This is our way. If you refuse, we will have no choice but to go to the police. Then do so, Adaora replied calmly. But no one will touch him. He is not ready. The chief studied her for a long moment, then sighed deeply. You are strong, child, he said, but grief makes people blind. Do not let it swallow you. I am not blind, Adaora answered softly. For the first time, I see clearly. That night, the rain fell hard over Lagos. The thunder rolled across the sky, shaking the windows. The wind howled through the cracks in the mansion's doors, but Adaora did not move. She sat on the floor beside the coffin, the lantern flickering in front of her. Every time the thunder struck, she whispered softly to herself, You cannot rest yet, my husband. Not until I know everything. At midnight, the front gate creaked open. Malik and Jide had returned with 2 policemen, hoping to force the burial. But when they entered the house, something made them stop. The air felt heavy, and the light from their torches seemed to dim. Madam, one of the officers called. We have come to take the body for burial. Adaora turned her head slowly toward them. Her face looked calm, but her eyes burned with quiet power. If you touch him, she said in a low voice, you will regret it. The officer hesitated. Something about her tone made the hairs on his neck stand. Malik whispered angrily, She's bluffing. Take the body. But before they could move, a loud crack of thunder boomed above, and the light went out completely. The house went dark. When the lantern flickered back to life, one of the officers stumbled backward, pale-faced. Let's go, he whispered. There's something strange here. Malik tried to protest, but the officers left quickly, and he followed them, cursing under his breath. When the door closed, Adaora exhaled deeply. She had not meant to frighten them, but she knew something was protecting the truth. It was as if the house itself stood guard beside her. By the next morning, everyone in Lagos seemed to know the story. The widow who refused to bury her husband, they called her. Some mocked her, others feared her, and some even respected her quiet strength. The church sent Father Emeka, the same priest who had blessed their wedding years ago. He came humbly, carrying his Bible. My daughter, he said gently, I do not come to judge. I only ask you this, why do you keep him here? Adaora looked at him sadly. Because I feel in my heart that his story is not finished. If I bury him now, I will bury the truth too. The priest sighed. And what truth is that? I don't know yet, she whispered. But I will find it. The priest studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then may God give you the strength to uncover it. He left quietly, saying nothing more. The mansion grew quieter after that. Even the neighbors stopped gossiping, afraid of what they did not understand. But Adaora remained the same, silent, strong, and unshaken. Every night, she lit her lantern and sat beside the coffin, whispering the same words. He is not ready for the earth. And as the wind rustled through the curtains, it almost sounded like the house agreed with her, a faint sigh in the darkness, soft but clear, as if something hidden was waiting to be found. The rain poured heavily that night, drumming against the windows like impatient fingers. The sky flashed with lightning, lighting up the mansion in sudden bursts of white light. Adaora sat in the sitting room beside the coffin, her eyes heavy with sleeplessness. For days, she had not eaten well or rested. Her heart felt heavy, but something inside her told her not to leave the coffin alone. As thunder rolled again, she closed her eyes for a moment. The lantern flickered weakly beside her, casting long shadows on the walls. Just as she was about to drift into a shallow sleep, a loud crash echoed from upstairs, from Tun's old office. The sound made her jump to her feet. At first, she thought it was the wind. But then she heard it again, a dull thud, as if something had fallen or broken. Her heart began to race. Slowly, she picked up the lantern and climbed the stairs, her bare feet silent on the cold marble floor. The corridor was dark, except for the trembling flame in her lantern. When she reached the office door, she noticed it was slightly open. That was strange. She was sure she had locked it after Tun's death. The sound of rain and thunder filled the air as she pushed the door wider and stepped inside. The office smelled faintly of old books and dust. Tun had loved that room. He used to spend long nights there, working on business files or reading reports. The big bookshelf against the wall was covered in dust now. His chair was still turned slightly to the window, as if waiting for him to return. Then she saw it. A long crack had appeared in the wall behind the bookshelf. The wallpaper had torn slightly, revealing something hidden. She walked closer, holding the lantern up. The flickering light revealed a faint outline, a small door hidden behind the shelf. Her hands trembled as she touched it. "What is this?" she whispered. She had lived in this house for 10 years, yet she had never seen this before. With a deep breath, she pushed the shelf aside. It groaned heavily, but finally moved enough to reveal the small wooden door. The door had no handle, just a keyhole. Adora's eyes darted around the room, and there, on Tun's desk, lay a small brass key she had never noticed before. She hesitated for a moment, staring at it. "Did you leave this for me, Tund?" she murmured. Her hand shook slightly as she picked it up and slid it into the keyhole. The lock clicked open easily, as if waiting for this moment. The door creaked as it swung open, and Adora gasped softly. A narrow staircase led down into darkness. She hesitated at the top, her heart pounding, but something urged her forward. Slowly, she stepped down, her lantern lighting the narrow walls as she descended. When she reached the bottom, she found herself in a small hidden room. Dust floated in the air like mist. Old wooden boxes were stacked neatly against the walls. In one corner, a metal cabinet stood half open. On a table in the center of the room lay a pile of letters and several thick notebooks. She set down her lantern and opened the nearest box. Inside were bundles of cash, thick, wrapped in brown paper, and covered with dates and company stamps. She opened another box, more money. Another, official documents, marked with Tun's company logo. Her heart sank. "What is this, Tund?" she whispered. Her eyes then fell on one of the notebooks. It was bound in dark leather, and on the first page, in Tun's familiar handwriting, was written, "For Adora, if I do not return." Her hands began to shake. She sat down on the dusty floor, holding the book close to the lantern's light, and started to read. At first, the words made little sense. He wrote about sleepless nights, about guilt, about people he had trusted who betrayed him. But as she read further, the truth became clear. Tun's company had been part of a large construction project meant to build homes for poor families. The government had given him millions of naira for it. But his partners had secretly moved most of the money into private accounts, leaving the project unfinished. Tund had discovered the fraud too late. When he tried to expose them, they turned against him. They threatened his reputation, his business, even his life. He had hidden the money he recovered here in the secret room, planning to use it to make things right. But before he could act, death came, sudden, mysterious, and silent. Adora's tears fell freely as she turned each page. "So this was your burden," she whispered. "You carried this alone." She remembered the way Tund had looked in his last days, tired, distant, yet strangely peaceful whenever he saw her. Now she understood why. He had been trying to fix his mistakes, to find forgiveness before it was too late. In one of the letters, he had written, "If I die before this is done, my spirit will not rest. The truth must be told. The people deserve what belongs to them. Adora, if you ever find this, please do what I could not." She pressed the letter to her chest, sobbing softly. The wind outside howled louder, as if echoing her pain. For a long moment, she sat there in the dim light, surrounded by secrets and regrets. When she finally looked up, her eyes were full of determination. She now understood why she could not bury him. It wasn't madness. It wasn't fear. It was truth, hidden deep in these walls, waiting for her to find it. She spent the rest of the night reading through every letter, every note, every page. She discovered the names of the people who had betrayed him, the banks they used, the exact amount stolen. Every word burned in her heart like fire. At dawn, when the rain finally stopped, Adoora climbed back up the stairs, clutching the notebook tightly to her chest. She walked to the sitting room and looked at the coffin. The first rays of morning light touched the polished wood, making it glow softly. She knelt beside it, tears still on her cheeks. "Now I understand," she whispered. "You were never at peace. You needed me to find this." She rested her hand on the coffin. "Do not worry, my love," she said softly. "I will finish what you started. I will give back what was taken. Then you can rest in peace." The house was silent again, but in that silence, Adoora felt something she had not felt in weeks: calm. It was as if the walls had stopped holding their breath. The storm had passed, both outside and within her heart. The truth had finally found light. That night, when the wind whispered through the garden, it carried a new sound, a soft sigh of peace, as if the soul of Tund Bako finally smiled. The morning sun rose over Lagos with a calm, golden glow. After days of heavy rain and restless nights, the sky finally cleared. The light touched the mansion's wide compound, washing away the shadows that had lingered for too long. Inside, Adoora Bako stood at the window, holding Tund's notebook tightly in her hands. Her eyes were red from sleeplessness, but there was strength in her face, a new strength that came from truth. For the first time since her husband's death, she felt her heart steady. The fear was gone. The confusion was gone. Now she knew what she had to do. She turned to Mama F, who had come early to clean. "Please send word," Adoora said. "Call everyone, the elders, the workers, my husband's brothers, even the neighbors. Tell them I want them here before noon." Mama F's eyes widened. "All of them, madam?" "Yes," Adoora said softly. "They all deserve to hear the truth." By late morning, the mansion gate was crowded. Men and women whispered among themselves. Some thought she was finally going to allow the burial. Others feared another strange act from the widow who had refused to follow custom. Children stood near the fence, curious and excited. When the gates opened, the people entered slowly. The elders came first, dressed in white agbadas, followed by Tun's brothers, Malik and Jide, who still wore proud but uncertain looks. The church priest, Father Emeka, also came, carrying his Bible, unsure what to expect. Adoora stood in front of them all, tall and calm. She wore a simple white wrapper and scarf. The big coffin still rested in the sitting room, just behind her. The air was tense, filled with curiosity and fear. When everyone settled, Adoora began to speak. Her voice was gentle but clear, reaching every ear in the room. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "I know what people have been saying about me, that I have lost my mind, that I am holding on to what must return to the earth. But today, you will understand why I could not bury my husband." The crowd murmured softly. Malik folded his arms, impatient. "You have kept us waiting long enough," he muttered. Adoora ignored him. She raised the small leather notebook in her hand. "This," she said, "is the truth my husband left behind." Everyone leaned forward as she opened it. Her fingers trembled slightly, but her voice stayed firm. Tund Bako was not only a rich man. He was also a man who made mistakes, mistakes that brought pain to others. His company received money to build homes for families who had nothing. But that money was stolen, hidden, and misused. Gasps filled the air. She continued, "When Tund discovered what had been done in his name, he tried to fix it. He gathered what he could and hid it, here in this house. He planned to return it, but death came too soon." Jide shook his head. "You lie," he shouted. "You are trying to shame us." Adoora turned to him, her eyes cold and steady. If I wanted shame, I would have stayed silent. But this truth does not belong to me. It belongs to all of you. She motioned toward the hallway. From there, 2 of the servants came forward, carrying the boxes she had found in the hidden room. They set them down carefully before the crowd. The sound of the boxes hitting the floor echoed through the hall like a drumbeat. "Open them," Eudora said. The elders hesitated, but Chief Balagan stepped forward first. He opened the lid of one box and froze. Inside were stacks of Naira notes, neatly wrapped and marked with the government seal. His hands trembled as he lifted one bundle. "By the spirits," he whispered, "this is a fortune." The people gasped again, louder this time. Eudora spoke over their murmurs. "This is the money meant for the people, for workers who were never paid, for homes that were never built. My husband kept it safe, hoping to return it. That is why I could not bury him. His soul could not rest with lies still chained to his name." Father Emeka slowly stepped forward. His face was full of awe and sadness. "You kept all this hidden." "I only found it 2 nights ago," Eudora said quietly. "Now I understand why I could not let him go. He wanted peace, but peace cannot live beside secrets." Chief Balagan turned to the crowd. "You hear her words," he said solemnly. "This woman has done what few would have dared. She has faced truth where others would have buried it." Malik, who had been silent for a while, now bowed his head. His voice was low. "We thought you were mad," he said. "But we were blind." Eudora nodded slowly. "I do not blame you. You saw what you could see. But I saw something deeper, a man who was not perfect, but who wanted to make things right." The workers from Tun's company, who had come to pay respects, stood in stunned silence. One of them, an older man named Samuel, stepped forward. His eyes were wet. "Madam," he said softly, "I worked for your husband. I was among those who never received pay for months. I cursed his name. But now I see he did not forget us." Eudora smiled weakly. "He did not. He carried that guilt until his last breath." The air in the room grew still. Even the sound of the street outside faded. For the first time, no one saw her as the mad widow. They saw her as a woman of courage, standing between love and truth. She turned to the elders. "I ask that this money be given back, every naira of it. Let it finish what he started. Let it build those homes and pay those men. Only then will he rest." The elders nodded slowly. Chief Balagan spoke again. "This is the right thing. His debt must be repaid. You have honored him more in truth than 1,000 burials could have." Eudora's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. Then she turned to the coffin. For the first time, she touched it without fear. Her voice softened. "You see, my love, the truth is free now. You can rest." A strange peace filled the mansion. The air no longer felt heavy. Even the sunlight through the window seemed brighter, warmer. The crowd began to leave slowly, still whispering about what they had witnessed. Some wept, others bowed their heads in respect. Malik and Jide stayed behind, standing quietly beside their sister-in-law. "We wronged you," Malik said. "And we wronged him." Eudora nodded. "You only followed what you understood. Now you know better." Father Emeka placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You have done something holy today, my child. You have given peace to both the living and the dead." When the last guest left, Eudora stood alone beside the coffin. For the first time, she smiled softly. The silence around her was no longer heavy. It was gentle, peaceful, almost loving. Outside, the wind carried the sound of children laughing, playing in the street. Life had returned. The house that once held sorrow now held something different, freedom. Eudora whispered, "You can rest now, Tund. The world knows your truth." And in that moment, she felt it, a quiet warmth, like a hand brushing against hers, light as air. She looked toward the coffin, and though it did not move, she felt that he was gone, truly gone and finally free. Weeks passed, and the noise around the Bako mansion slowly faded. The crowd stopped gathering at the gate, and the whispers in the markets grew quiet. People had finally accepted the truth, not just about Tund Bako, but about the strength of the woman who had stood for what was right. Adoora no longer kept herself locked inside. She walked freely through the city, her steps calm, her eyes soft but sure. The heaviness that once filled her chest had lifted. Each morning, she watched the sunrise from the balcony, and sometimes she spoke softly to the air, as if her husband could still hear her. "Tund," she would whisper, "your secret no longer sleeps in the dark. The people have forgiven you. And I have forgiven you too." The house, however, no longer felt like home. Every room carried memories, laughter that had turned to silence, love that had turned to loss. The walls reminded her of both his mistakes and his redemption. One quiet morning, she walked through each room, touching the furniture one last time. Then she called the lawyer and said, "Sell it." The lawyer was surprised. "Madam Adoora, this house is worth a fortune. It is your home." Adoora smiled gently. "It was a home built on pain. I want something that will build hope instead." Within weeks, the sale was complete. The mansion that once stood as a symbol of wealth now became the foundation of something new. With the money, Adoora bought land near the edge of the city, a wide, peaceful space filled with mango trees and red soil. There, she began her new work. At first, people were unsure of her plans. "A school?" they asked. "And a hospital? Why not build another company or buy another mansion?" But Adoora only smiled. Because this is what the truth must become, something that helps, not something that hides. She named the school the House of Truth, in memory of Tund's final wish and the burden he had carried to his grave. The walls were painted white, with wide windows that let in sunlight. The small hospital stood beside it, simple, clean, and filled with care. Children laughed in the schoolyard, their voices rising high like songs of new beginnings. People from near and far came to see what she had built. The poor came with gratitude, the elders came with blessings, and even the city officials came to shake her hand. "She has turned sorrow into strength," one elder said. "She has shown that truth can heal more than lies ever can." Adoora became known not for her beauty or her husband's wealth, but for her heart. She worked with the teachers, she read to the children, and she visited the sick in the hospital every day. When someone asked her why she worked so hard, she said simply, "Because pain taught me what peace really means." At night, she would sometimes sit under one of the tall mango trees, watching the stars. Those were the moments she felt closest to Tund. She could almost hear his voice in the rustling leaves, soft and full of regret. "I did wrong," that voice seemed to say, "but you gave me peace." And she would answer quietly, "We both found peace, my love." After months of work, when the school and hospital were finally complete, Adoora decided it was time. The coffin that had waited for so long would now be laid to rest, not in the mansion, but beside the mango tree near the school. The whole community gathered again, not in confusion or anger this time, but in respect. The sun was bright, and the air smelled of new earth and ripe fruit. Children from the school stood in neat lines, holding small flowers. Adoora wore white again, the same color she had worn when she first faced the truth. She walked slowly toward the simple grave that had been prepared under the tree. The priest stood beside her, reading soft prayers. When he finished, Adoora stepped forward. She touched the coffin one last time and whispered, "Now you may rest. Your truth has found light." The crowd fell silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Then, slowly, the coffin was lowered into the ground. Adoora picked up a handful of soil and let it fall gently. "Sleep in peace," she said. "You are free now." Tears glistened in many eyes, not from sorrow, but from admiration. Father Emeka wiped his face and said softly, "A man's wealth dies with him, but truth lives forever. You, Adoora, have given his truth life." The children began to sing a small song, one of hope, of light, of new beginnings. Their voices filled the air, echoing across the schoolyard and through the mango trees. As the people began to leave, many stopped to speak to her. "You have done something greater than money," one old woman said. "You have shown us courage." Another man added, "Your husband was rich, but you are wise." Adoora smiled humbly. "I only did what love asked of me," she said. From that day onward, no one called her the billionaire's wife anymore. The title that once followed her everywhere disappeared. In its place, a new name grew in the hearts of the people, Aurora the Brave. When stories were told in the market at night, people spoke of her not as a widow, but as a woman who faced darkness and brought light from it. Mothers told their daughters, "Be like Aurora, strong, honest, and kind." Years passed, and the school became known across the region. Many children who studied there grew up to become teachers, doctors, and leaders. And whenever they spoke about their beginnings, they would say, "I learned under the mango tree at the House of Truth." Aurora grew older, but her spirit never dimmed. Every evening, she still walked to Tun's grave, brushing off the fallen mango leaves and placing a fresh flower there. She would smile softly and say, "You see what your truth has built? Look how it lives on." Sometimes the wind would blow gently, and a few mangoes would drop near her feet. She took that as his answer, silent, peaceful, grateful. The mansion was gone, but something far greater had taken its place, not walls of wealth, but foundations of truth. As the sun set behind the mango trees, the sound of laughter from children filled the air once again. And in that golden light, Aurora sat quietly, her heart full. She had buried not just a man, but the lies that once bound him. In doing so, she had set his soul, and her own, free. From that day forward, she lived not as a woman of loss, but as a woman of legacy.